I'm going to start a story that has been building for decades and that metal fans have studied, argued about, and sometimes even fought over. It's about James Hetfield, Metallica's lead singer and rhythm guitarist, and Dave Mustaine, the fiery guitarist who helped shape the band's early days before going off on his own with Megadeth. As of now, James is 61 years old and has been through enough to fill 100 songs. He has had successes, failures, and a feud that has become legendary. These days he's been talking about Dave and Megadeth in honest, deep and sometimes shocking ways. It's not just about two guys who played music together. It's about being young, having problems, getting better, and what it means to look back on a life spent screaming into speakers and making music. Let's do it one step at a time, like a long riff that keeps getting stronger. James and Dave met in 1981 before Metallica was even a band. James was 18 years old and from Downey, California. He had a rough voice and a grudge. Dave was a musician from La Mesa who was a year younger than me. He had a wild side and his fingers moved quickly over the fretboard like lightning. They met through an ad in the local paper The Recycler. Lars Ulrich, the drummer for Metallica, was looking for a lead guitarist. Dave got there, plugged in and began to play. Lars and James didn't even make him try out. They gave him a beer and told him he was in. That's how it began, with cheap drinks and big hopes. Early on things were crazy. There were practices in sweaty sheds and shows in rundown clubs. There were kids who wanted to make a sound that was different from what was on the radio. It was louder and faster. Thrash metal wasn't even a word yet, but that's what they called it. Dave was strong. He added riffs that hit like punches, and songs like Jump in the Fire and The Mechanic began to take shape. James, on the other hand, was finding his voice as a person and as a musician. They were electric together because they fed off of each other's power. It wasn't all peace though. Dave's attitude was just as intense as his music. He drank a lot. They partied more and wouldn't back down from a fight. I wouldn't say James was a saint either. Metallica's early years were marked by drinking and bad behavior. There were small cracks in the tension that no one noticed at first. Dave got more drunk, and his anger got worse. James and Lars felt like they were taking care of him like a child. Dave poured beer on Ron McGovernay's bass, who was Metallica's first bassist, and something bad happened. And another one where he fought with James over a dog at drill. These kinds of stories kept coming out, and by 1983 the gaps were wide open. In April of that year, Metallica was in New York getting ready to record Kill Em Alakia, their first release. That had already hired Kirk Hammett from Exodus to take Dave's place, but Dave didn't know it yet. James and Lars woke him up one morning and told him he was going to be late. No notice, and no chance to fix it. It's just a bus ticket to get there again. Dave was 21, mad, and felt bad about himself. He wrote the words to Set the World on Fire on that 4-day Greyhound ride. The song was filled with the kind of anger that can only come from betrayal. It was a hard choice for James, but he had to make it. Afterward he said they were too busy to keep up with Dave's chaos. It looked like it would sink the band before it even began. At the time it felt like a fight for life. But for Dave it was a hurt that wouldn't get better. Dave didn't wait around. Before he left LA he started Megadeth, putting all of his anger and drive into it. They dropped Killing Is My Business in 1985, and business is good since then. A rough and dangerous record that proved he wasn't done being bad. In the meantime, Metallica put out Kill Em LD in 1983 and Einride, The Lightning in 1984. In the thrash scene both bands were making their mark, but they were also enemies, whether they said so or not. With Metallica's raw power going up against Megadeth's technical rage, fans chose a side. During those years, James and Dave didn't talk much, but their music did. Metallica's The Four Horsemen and Megadeth's The Mechanics were related because they both used the same riff, shaped by various hands. It was impossible to avoid the parallels, and they hurt. Metallica's fame kept growing through the 1980s. In 1986, Master of Puppets made them the Thrash Kings, and by 1991, Black had made them famous all over the world. James was becoming a legendary lead singer. His growl and stage personality could not be matched. Dave, on the other hand, was making Megadeth even stronger. People buy albums like 8 Piece, but who does? And Piso showed that he was a genius in his own right by combining speed with melody and words that got to the heart of things. But Dave had a terrible home life. Megadeth was harmed by drug abuse, fights and band members leaving and joining. As he worked his way up, he saw Metallica soar, which made him angry and sometimes let it show in interviews. He would scream at James and Lars, saying they stole his riffs, or played down his part in Metallica. James kept silent and let his music speak for him, but the silence made things worse between them. By the late 1990s, both guys were in a tough spot. James was thinking about how Metallica had changed over time. Fans had different opinions about records like Elegy and Religy, and he was drinking too much. Dave, on the other hand, wanted Megadeth to stay current in a metal world that was changing. While making IAA Kind of Monster in 2001, they ran into each other. The documentary about Metallica, Dave met with James and Lars, and it was like an old wound was being opened. He said that Metallica's fame hurt him a lot, what it was like to lose his dream when he got fired. James paid attention, but it was tense. Afterward he said he felt bad for Dave but didn't know what to do. That meeting didn't make things better, it showed how fresh the past was. In the 2010s, things began to change. When James stopped drinking and using drugs in 2002, it was a turning point that made him face his problems. He began to be more honest about his problems, his fears, and even his faith. It was also happening to Dave. He stopped using drugs, found a faith, and began to think about his life. The band Metallica asked Dave to play with them at their 30th anniversary shows in San Francisco in 2011. For a short time, it felt like 1981 again when they played old songs like Hit the Lights and Metal Militia. The two musicians, James and Dave, played together on stage, and got along fine. Fans went crazy, and it felt like the hatchet might be buried for the first time. In the end, Dave said it meant a lot to him to be able to close a chapter. James thought it was cool, but he didn't say much more. Like James always, not letting his cards slip. In 2019, Dave was diagnosed with throat cancer. It hit the metal world hard. Someone first got in touch with me, James. He sent me a text that made Dave cry. James wrote, "I love you and I'm here for you." For Dave, it showed that even though they were rivals, they were still close. At age 61, he was still a force, as shown by Megadeth's record Jet of the Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, K, which came out in 2022. Metallica, on the other hand, released 8 72-season albums in 2023, and James still sounds as important as ever. Both men were older and smarter, but they were still hungry. They began to talk about each other with more respect and less hostility. For a rare interview in 2025, James sat down with Dave, whose number was 61. James could see things more clearly than he could when he was 20. He said that Dave was a big part of what we did. He gave us the fire we needed at the time. I understand why it didn't end well. Let's be honest, we were young and naive. He agreed that firing Dave was a harsh choice, but he said it changed both bands. Megadeth and maybe even Metallica, as we know them today, would not exist without that split. It's strange to think about. He even said nice things about Megadeth's work, calling Rust and Peaceful record a beast. The past wasn't something James wanted to bury, it was something he wanted to own. Dave has always talked about James more. In talks, he's called him a rival, a brother, and one of the best rhythm guitarists living. Dave said in 2022 that James doesn't get enough thanks. He can play riffs like crazy, but he's also been honest about the pain. He said in a talk last year, "Getting kicked out broke me. That weighed me down for a long time, but I'm proud of what I made. Megadeth is my heart." He's even said he might want to work with James again, but James hasn't said anything about it. Dave said with a smile, "I jam with him. He has Metallica though, while I have my own thing. We're fine." Now it's clear that both guys have changed. Once guarded and rude, James has become kinder as he has aged. He has become more self-aware since he got sober and started therapy. Even after decades of sold-out shows, he said he still feels insecure. For example, in 2022, he got upset on stage and said he felt old and questioned his playing. Dave texted after seeing that video, "You're a beast, James. Do more ripping." Dave didn't mind that James didn't answer, but James didn't. He said, "That's just him. He knows I'll look out for him." Dave, for his part, has also calmed down. His tongue is still very sharp, but he's not as angry. He cares more about his reputation than old grudges. It's not just about music and their story, it's about life. James and Dave were kids who thought they could make the world a better place. They did, but it didn't come easy. Years went by while they didn't talk to each other. The breakup left scars on their hearts, and they went on to build businesses. They are both still here, and making things at age 61. It's still amazing. James says he doesn't think about the past too much, but he does wish his relationship with Dave wasn't so messed up. He laughed and said, "We were young, stupid and drunk, but we made some great music." Dave agrees, but he's more proud of Megadeth than ever. He said that Metallica was theirs. This is mine. Fans still want the whole group to get back together, but it's not likely. Metallica and Megadeth are quite different from one another. Each has its own soul. James and Dave have already shown the world what they can do by sharing the stage. Their competition made them great, and the fact that they got along again, even though it was quiet, shows what time can do. James said it best, "Like me, Dave has survived. It was hell for us, but we made it through and are still here. That's how metal works." The story of James Hetfield and Dave Mustaine is like a record with two sides. There are different stories on each side, but they all come from the same groove. James, now 61, is thinking back on a heavy metal career that shaped the genre. Dave's name keeps coming up, not as a ghost, but as a puzzle piece.